So, hi everyone, and welcome to this channel, which is all about listening to other people's stories, and especially awakening stories and all kind of spiritual experiences. And yeah, I hope you have just an open mind, like every time, because every story is very unique and can have a lot of things which resonate with you, other things they want, but just keep an open mind and yes, take the information you really which can help you on your journey. And of course, just leave any questions in the comments below if you find something interesting, or you might think about that it will help you. If Kareena, which is my guest today, can help you in your questions, then just comment and I will let her know. But let's start right now, and I welcome Kareena.
Hello, Catherine.
Hello, very nice to have you here.
Yeah, very
Um,
happy to be here.
yeah, so let's start with you just talking about what you're doing today. So how is your life today? Where do you live?
Okay. Well, I'm Australian originally. I grew up in Sydney, Australia. Um, I moved around quite a bit after the age of 21, and then I went back to Australia for a few years. And in the past 6 years, I've been living in Mexico. And I sort of came here actually on the beginning of my spiritual journey, or at least the most intense part of it. And what I thought might be a vacation for a few months ended up 6 years later here today.
Wow, so nice. So you thought about that it might help you to change location, or just to have a break?
Yeah. When I left, I was in a very sort of bad place in my life. I'd been very depressed for a number of years. And I got into a point where I really felt like I had to do everything I could to get out of it because it was that bad and it was ruining my life.
Mm. Yeah.
And I was meditating at that time every day, um, 3 times a day for an hour at a time. It was one of the few things that made me feel better. And actually, that's during that time that I had my first Kundalini experience. And that led me to decide to go on a retreat. And so I started looking for retreats, and I did think another location would be helpful. So I found one on the coast of Oaxaca in southern Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I booked that retreat. It was a 10-day silent retreat. And yeah, so that's how I ended up here. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, but can you tell us a bit more about your first experience, your Kundalini experience? What happened there?
Okay. So that was during one of my evening meditations. I was usually just meditating on sort of this part of my head and connecting to higher consciousness, or whatever you call it, whatever you like to call it. And I started to feel a strong sensation in my chest area, like something moving around, almost like a worm. And it was quite a visceral feeling. And I was just sort of observing it. It wasn't painful. It was just a really strange, like something moving around in there. And then I could feel it moving up and quite slowly going through my throat, and then further up and up, and sort of bursting out of my head like just a big burst of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole body was sort of consumed with energy then. And I was sort of in a state of euphoria, like a real blissful state. And I opened my eyes and everything around seemed to be really vivid and bright. And I was just full of energy and ecstatic. And that feeling just lasted the whole night. And I didn't sleep. I was just sat there like in this state. And so yeah, it was sort of just a few days after that that I made that decision. Okay, yes, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and I'm going to start with a meditation retreat. And I committed to myself that I'll do whatever I have to do to heal whatever it is that is making me feel so depressed.
So, but actually, so it was that after this peak experience, you fell back into a state of depression.
Yeah, I did. Um, that feeling, that euphoria, that was just a single event, and I felt better for a couple of days. I felt good, but I knew that I knew that that wasn't just it. And I started to fall down again very quickly. And yeah, I mean, what I've come to understand is that, you know, a Kundalini event is just one time. It's not a fix all. And if you have a lot of stuff that you need to, wounds that you need to heal, they're still there. They don't disappear. So
Yes. So this is also, it's my channel, actually, my goal also is to really teach people about the truth, about all of the truth that is around this topic. Because I see a lot of people, they think when you had a Kundalini awakening afterwards you're enlightened and happy, and it's just not true. It's quite the opposite. I mean, until you went through a lot of stuff, like
mhm.
actually I'm also now in on that ride since 6 7 years.
Right,
Of
wow.
course, you have like really rapid growth potential with this energy, but it's also annoying because she as soon as she's activated, she's not nobody is going to ask you anymore if you want to push through that stuff or not.
Oh
It's
no.
you just have to. So you
It's
just have to go along the ride. And actually, I mean, like I told you before that I had 2 weeks which were really, really rough, just happened. And it was crazy because so much terror came up in my system. And I really thought I'm going nuts. And
yeah.
but the funny thing is, I was really in a terror state where the energy was, because I didn't want to feel it too much. I pushed it a bit out,
Okay.
so it was
Yeah.
out. But then suddenly I thought, okay, this is just not stopping. So I will just really push it into my body and through my body, and either I die or it will get better. But this is not a state of living which I can handle very long. And then I really pushed it into me, and I thought, okay, I will feel the terror now with
Mhm.
all the, because as you said, it's a very visceral experience. It's not only emotional anymore; it's really physical. So you are hurt physically when the energy is telling you that there's something off. So it's really, really painful.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly makes you extremely sensitive to, you
Yeah.
know, anything from noises to your own feelings to emotions that are coming in. You're literally like, I don't know an analogy, but just a very sensitive
Yeah.
state. So yeah,
Exactly.
I
and
feel
and
you.
you just feel when the energy is in chaos, because it really hurts then. I mean, it's like it's really really annoying. Then you can relate to that for sure. But then I had this very nice experience of, okay, when I do that, when I really let the darkness flow through me, it
Yeah.
opened a lot of stuff in my body. And the day after, I felt much better, and I went to a yoga class.
Yeah.
And I was totally amazed because my body was so much more open and flexible just by letting the terror really
Yes.
work through me instead of avoiding it. And
Yeah.
it just showed me, I mean, it's funny because I more and more I realized that one of my shadow sides I have is that I always want to be a light being, but I'm very dark. And
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
have to really come to terms with that this might be my lightness, which I can bring to this planet by really experiencing the darkness and not avoiding it, because a lot of all people do. And I'm fed up
Yeah.
with it because I feel it makes me sick when I don't
It
let it.
does.
So
Yeah.
I'm at this place now where I start to accept my shadow, and that I really, really have to let it flow through me. And but then it also taught me that a lot of the shadow which I experience is actually not that that I'm in pain. It's just it's a collective pain which go through me. And
Mm-hmm.
I make up stories then why I feel that way. Oh, it's because my son went back to Costa Rica. I'm so sad. Or it's just because you have to make sense of these experiences. But
Yeah.
I really learned now, maybe it's just let it go through you. It's you don't have to make a story
Yeah.
out of it, you know.
I those things are both key. Is there is no getting away without feeling it. You're gonna have to go through it eventually. And I look at the long periods of my own resistance and how it just kept me stuck. But you know that it's understandable. Some things really do feel too painful at sometimes. Certain
Mm-hmm.
times to go through, you're not prepared. Um, but also, I totally found the same thing, and I found it when I started to separate my identity and to let go of my identity. I didn't feel so bad about the darkness anymore because it's just part of the identity, right? And that's something that the identity doesn't want to acknowledge because it doesn't look good. Nobody likes it. Nobody, you're not supposed to be bad and dark and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there, and um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Yeah. So well, actually, one of my questions normally also are if you like did something that triggered the awakening, but you said before that actually it was a depression and then you started to meditate a lot, right? So that
Yeah,
was actually.
yeah. I'm pretty sure it was the fact of meditating so much.
Mhm.
And I'd been meditating for many years, but not that intensely, not every single day, and not multiple times a day. And I was getting into really, really deep states. And I could get into them like very easily and connect with my higher consciousness. And I was also doing, and maybe this is now that I think of it, the reason is I was doing a heart centered meditation as well. And was it that something was stuck here? Was something energy stuck in my heart? Maybe it was finally being released, or I don't have a full answer for the why, but definitely I would say it was the meditating that led to that
Mhm.
first experience.
Yeah. Well, actually, I also don't know what it is because for me it was the same, exactly the same.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
but my I always when I explain what happened to me is that I always say it was a feeling of that like an inner layer of my body suddenly start to wiggle very fast, and then shoot it shoot out of my crown.
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
And
but
it's
for
in your
me
chest.
it was in the solar plexus area.
Okay, okay.
So it started there to move very yeah, really like a worm, or it's just really, it's not just a vision, it's really happening. I mean, and I'm sure if I would have had my hand on the belly, it would have moved. I would have felt it like a baby. So
Yeah,
something also for me, it was moving and then shooting out of the crown.
that's
So
interesting because you're the only other person I've heard say that it wasn't coming from their spine. All the stories and accounts I've heard, people are always talking about this energy coming up up their spine, and yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
very interesting. Yes. And yeah, it's also something I sometimes feel, that my energy is very in the front and not so much in the back. So,
okay,
yeah,
interesting.
it's something I also have. It's more in the front and more on the right side. So
Okay,
it's something I still have to find balance. So to bring the energy more to the left side and to the back.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, it's an
Mhm.
interesting practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, and what are your experiences right now? Like, did you have a lot of kriyas, the involuntary body movements, or how did it work out for you?
Um, as in, what is my just regular experience every day sort of thing?
Yeah.
I I mean, there is another episode that did involve, I think, some kinds of kriyas, but no, I don't. Like on a day-to-day basis, I don't have involuntary movements, but I make sure I move my energy every single day without question, because if I don't, my energy gets stuck and I start to go down emotionally very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sometimes it's yoga. At the moment, it's the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I feel my body and my mental state feels very good by being strong physically.
Yeah.
I'm blessed to live right near the beach, so I get my body into the water
Mm-hmm.
several times a week, and that's super grounding. I get my body onto the sand, and I've used this at really intense times, very well, where I have felt completely ungrounded, like I'm almost going to fly away. I get down on the sand and, you know, um, sort of let the earth calm my body down.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of make it a priority in my life to be as calm as possible in my body and as centered.
Mm-hmm.
And I just continue to use everyday life as continuing to learn on the path every single day. Every single experience can be a um, new information about energy. Oh, look how that happened. Look how that happened. And I now just live intuitively all the time, very much. I learn to pay attention to that very easily. And even if I don't want to do something, I now know when the intuition is there. It's just like I just go and do it, and I don't ask questions. And yeah, I do notice as well that when I start to live too much back in, I mean, okay, we live in reality, in a material world, a physical world where we have to interact and do our duties and so on. Um, but I need to prioritize, I think, my spiritual life. And if I do too much, getting into, I don't know, TV or, things that are just not not positive. It affects me a lot, maybe more than might affect other people. So that's, I sort of learned I don't have any choice anymore. Like I just have to remind myself constantly of the principles, keep practicing, remaining positive, and continuing to learn, and just continuing the practice of like letting go of all of that old programming. And when I see myself getting a little bit caught up again in the thinking, all that identity stuff, it's like, go back, remember, do your practice, and
Yeah.
let go. So
Yeah. So what are your peak insights? Like, yeah. What do you take most, and how did you learn it? I mean, because for me, it quite often comes actually by just because I'm also one of the lucky ones who doesn't have too much kriyas in the gross body, but I have a lot of kriyas inside. So as soon as I lay down, I have a lot of problems sometimes sleeping because the energy is pushing so much. And then it can also be painful because my tissue is really pushed, but like inside. But it can be very annoying. And also that flattering feeling from the when it started, that
yeah.
I have a lot inside, and it's tearing from one side to the other and showing me where I'm not in balance, and it's really really annoying.
A lot. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and then but it's very funny because when I the energy and how she is working in my body is already a teaching of how life works. Like when I'm very upset, the energy is all over the place. Like
Yeah.
literally, it's like, and it's so annoying. And I feel that in this state, I feel that there's a certain vibration which is kind of it's just a vibration. It's not a feeling. It's just a vibration, but it's the
Mm,
vibration of kind of fear. And when you
yeah.
are in that, you
Yeah.
you have really trouble coming out. But
Yeah.
then what I can do when I come out of it, at least with my head, I can tell myself, okay, now just bring the energy into the middle as much as you can, and
Mhm.
then everything slows down, and then the teachings come. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting.
Actually, now that you say that, although I don't have sort of bodily movements in the traditional Kriya sense, my
Mm-hmm.
energy does sometimes just get completely out of control, and maybe it's a kind of anxiety. It would seem like a kind of anxiety, but it is just like you're describing, as in an extreme scatteredness, and it's very hard to get it under control.
Mm-hmm.
But if that happens, I just go back inside, don't try to get things done, because it just goes bad. It goes badly. Interactions with people, it sort of
Mm-hmm.
affects other people. Um, so I just try to do as little as possible.
Yeah.
I use breathing, because I find at those times I can't even meditate if it's too out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So breathing exercises, pranayama, is one of the best ways for me to deal with that. But I hear you. There are times where it just feels beyond my control. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, for the listeners, for me, it's always important to say we all everyone knows the feeling of fear and or anxiety in the body. And that is exactly what I think when you have an active Kundalini. It's just that you all also feel it very energetically. So so you're really feeling it, what is happening in the system with these kind of energies of emotions. And yeah, so what I find very interesting is that whatever we are saying here, even for the people who do not have a Kundalini awakening, it doesn't matter the strategies, because
Mhm.
it's not true that I think when you have a Kundalini awakening, the only thing that is happening is that the consciousness wanders into the nervous system. But even when your Kundalini is not awakened, the same is happening in your nervous system. So you can do exactly the same what we are saying when we try to calm us down. It's just that we feel it more, cannot deny it that much, because it's a bodily feeling. So yeah,
Yeah.
that I find also very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, people can have spiritual awakenings and go through these symptoms without a Kundalini event.
Yeah, exactly. And
People
then the
who,
strategies are exactly the same.
yeah, breathing and act. I mean, I haven't done any, what is it, ice baths, but a lot of people near where I live are doing them, and that seems to be something that's extremely helpful for calming energy as well. Just a
Yeah,
little bit.
and for me, what I actually want to also let the people know is, out of my experience, the fear state and high vibration love state is, sometimes we confuse it. So sometimes when you feel in a panic or anxiety state, ask yourself that if it's really that, if there is there really a, a trigger outside which uh,
Yeah,
is responsible for your state, or could it be that your system is just attuning to a higher level of vibration, but you're getting scared because to come to euphoria, it's not easy.
yeah,
The lucky ones, they just shoot out and they have the euphoric state for a moment. But when you go slowly there, you on the way, you will always have nearly panic attacks, because the problem is that the vibration goes up, and your system, when the vibration goes up, you you confuse it with anxiety, so the heart rate goes up, you start
yeah.
sweating maybe. And so this is also important for me, always look out if there is really a reason for your panic, and if not, maybe just relax and think about, okay, maybe I just attune to a vibration I'm not used yet, and relax into it. It does not have to be always something negative. So
Yeah,
yeah.
the less you can resist, the easier it's going to be for you.
Yeah.
And that's easier said than done. But even
Exactly.
an intention, even if you just tell yourself, I find that sometimes things don't feel like they're happening in the moment, but you then see the results later. And
Hmm.
um, I also will sometimes do sound healing. I'll just put on a sound healing from the internet, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
lie down and I'll do that. I sometimes go to physical sound healings, and definitely afterwards, maybe an hour after, there's such a big benefit, such a
Yeah.
calming benefit from that. So
Very nice. Yes. What else? What else do you have? Like, but do you also feel, because that is also a point which I feel, and funny enough, I think maybe we are a bit the same, how the energy is activated in our body. So it's more in the front, and it's more like pushing up. So we have to ground. For me,
could
it's,
be.
yeah, because often when I lay down, I have that feeling of my energy wants to kind of fly out, and I really have to pull back.
Yeah, I
But
definitely feel like I could fly away and I have to maintain.
yes, but that's like that's a mediocre solution because you always pull back. So I also understood that I really have to ground, so that
Yeah.
the energy is not always kind of feeling like she I'm losing it, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
also, you know, I'm kind of trippy, so I have to bring her really into my body and moving it into the earth. So
Yeah, I think that food for me is important as well. I do eat meat and I make sure I eat a lot. If I'm feeling ungrounded, it does ground me.
yeah.
And I at times have tried. I mean, I remember during the meditation retreat I first did when I was here, they were serving vegan food, and I had to sneak in ham and cheese and put it in the food because it's not enough for me. It just goes. It's like eating nothing, and I need
Yeah.
heavier foods to ground. Hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Yes, that this is also something which is very important for me. Not everything is for everyone. You don't have to be vegan in order to be like spiritually correct, or because sometimes the body really needs a lot of grounding and salt
Yeah.
and yeah.
It's different for everyone, and yeah, that's one of the most important lessons is to listen to yourself. And because it's a confusing time, that can also be hard. Like, what's right, what's wrong? I don't know. Just keep trying. Listen, if you have this craving for this food or to do a certain activity, really do listen to that because your body is very intelligent and it's telling you what it needs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's always the point where people then are not sure. Well, that's also a lot of the teachings I had during that journey, because every time you have that peak experience, well, actually, I just have to listen to my core, and then everything is going to be all right. Like that, these big teachings of stop and just surrender, you know, and just let go. And yeah, don't be afraid anymore that you could be wrong and stuff like that. And it's so difficult because your mind starts to wander in directions like, yeah, but if Hitler would have said that, then, you know, it's very funny how you start to make stories that no, you cannot rely on yourself because people are doing wrong outside, and if they say they are right, what happens to the planet? So, and it's very interesting how you have to just shut off
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
mind and just stay with you connected and tell yourself, no,
Yeah.
actually, I feel like I can rely on my core.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's essentially, I think that's one of the main goals of awakening, and is to be living in that part of yourself where you always know what the voice is telling, the voice, or your heart, your soul is telling you. And um, my journey, taught me time and time again and it punished me when I didn't do it. Punished, but
yeah,
no, until I finally surrendered. I was like, okay, I don't want to suffer anymore. I've been shown through so many different aspects of healing and suffering. I was shown time and time again until I got it. And so I just now don't listen with I if I don't listen, I know I'm going to suffer. So I just have managed to get to that place where it's like, do it and do not be hard on yourself.
Mm.
it's all okay. Be kind to yourself, and yeah, like watch the voice, but don't watch the chit chat and the story, but listen to your what your soul is telling you, what your higher self is telling you you need.
Yeah. But that's also, it's so, so difficult, and it just takes a lot of practice. And when I think about actually, yeah, I mean, Kundalini awakened 6, 7 years ago. And since then, at least 2 hours a day, I have to practice in a certain way. Either meditate, and for me, meditation is more like really lying down and just seeing what the energy is doing in my body, and trying to align her more into the middle,
Yeah.
and trying to stop the chit chat. For me, it's very, very difficult. So and or to just study again. For me, it's also in circles. I have times where I meditate for months,
Yeah.
and then I come to a peak, and then I have to go and research again what it now all means, and how I can resolve the problem of never, quieting my mind really, or whatever. It's just always this
Yeah.
deep diving into finding out what is going on in your body, and then you come to peak experiences where you find a plateau, and then you have to
Yeah.
research again. So
Yeah.
right, you have that experience as well.
Yeah, I totally hear you, and it's also like quite exhausting. So, you do a lot of work, and then you kind of like, okay, I need a rest, need to have some fun, and I need to be normal, and so you go off, and then you start to feel that, you got to come back again and work at it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I was just thinking of Michael Singer when you were talking, because I don't know if you're familiar with him and his
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah.
He wrote a book, a really famous book called The Untethered Soul, and
Uh-huh.
another one, The Surrender Experiment. And I read them many years ago, and I was inspired, but I didn't really understand it. And recently, I started to reread and re-practice his practices, and they were really central for getting me back into that state of separateness and just watching the identity. And it sort of allowed me to really see it and be like, wow, look at all those stories I made up,
Mm.
and then to let them go and say, wow, maybe I'm not that person, I'm not like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on the practice of self-inquiry. That's often connected with Ramana Maharshi, a great
Yeah.
yogi.
Yeah.
And Michael Singer just sort of explains it in a much more accessible way. And um, yeah, his teachings helped me a lot with that.
Yeah. Yeah, but that I also find very interesting, that during the process you always have there also these cycles where you actually you have to find out how it is to just be the witness, like to find a bit of that non-dual state, and where you are like unbothered, but
Yeah,
but then you return because you feel that this is not quite right. This is this is a very important step for me, because you have to let go of the ego, so that you are capable again to take more in, because then you made the experience that this is not all you, but then
yeah,
you have to come back into the human experience of feeling it all, but then you can do it much deeper because as I told you that I had this very strong experience of a lot of emotions are not mine. This is collective stuff. And because I experience it, I think then, it's because I'm tired, or no, it's just a feeling that is going through. So
Yeah,
then
I mean,
teachings are very important, because otherwise you don't understand that might be not you or you. But for me, it's very important also here to tell the people, the listeners, and everyone. It's really important that you never think that when you're spiritually awakened, then you don't suffer anymore, and it's just all happy and unicorns. It's just that your perception shifts, and you, first of all, you have more curiosity for the human condition,
yeah, yeah,
the emotional turmoil, and you also see the sense in it, and the compassion opens tremendously. For me, it was like when I understood, especially when I had that peak teaching of actually we are all just suffering because we are for me, the biggest fear we humans have is to experience real and unconditional love. And this sounds strange because everyone would tell you, no, I mean, this is all I want. But
mhm.
honestly, if it comes, you run, because it's a power, it's nuclear, it's crazy. When the power comes, your whole system has to be prepared, and it's not easy.
Yeah,
And again, it's something that you quite often, when that comes, your vibration goes up, and then you start to have panic attacks. So
yeah,
no, don't, so I understand that the biggest fear of humanity is to let that unconditional love in. And it's very touching for me then to see that, how people, they wander around and they're like, so they're begging for love, but
yeah,
when they
yeah,
open up to it, they get scared, and it's so hard.
yeah,
It's really like a toddler that has to learn slowly how to,
yeah,
you know
yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean, we're all conditioned to be existing as, in these roles, and essentially within our ego, and to be unconditionally loved, I think requires you to let go of a lot of that, or to at least to give it, you have to give a lot away. So yeah, it's
yeah.
an ongoing practice, and it's not something that I think once you start, you can't really let it go. It's just always going to be there in the background, pushing you to come back to your practice,
Hmm.
of surrender. And if you have pain and trauma to deal with it. Um, but I would say that I feel, even I feel these things that seemed overwhelming to lessen over time, and I began to feel my body, which at one time I was so sensitive that it was really hard to leave the house. It was hard to go to the grocery store. I spent months in bed. I went through extreme darkness. I wanted to check out a number of times. And I was so weak, really, my spirit, I felt.
Hmm.
But as I came, I think, out of the bottom and started to come up, my strength started to build. And so everything that is coming at us and was coming at me, I began to find a way to sort of shield myself against it. And I intentionally, when I go out or I'm in a situation, I make an effort to put that shield on so I can exist
Hmm.
in society and I can do some regular stuff.
So how do you do that? Maybe someone would profit from it when you can tell them how you learn to kind of have that shield that protects you a bit?
Well, the problem is I've heard many people say things like, imagine a white light around you, or they tell you to do some kind of practice. And you can try to do that. Maybe it would work for you. But for me, none of these things, these practices did work. It had to be a process of going through my own stuff and healing and naturally becoming stronger and rebuilding my spirit, because
Mm-hmm.
I really completely lost all of my life force through this process. And it was through healing that it naturally started to come back. And then I can just set an intention when I go out, and I'll go into a different state of my mind, for example, like I'm aware of my soul, I'm in my heart, I step outside my front door, and I just allow that strength that I've felt grow in me, I allow it to be there, and I put my focus on what I'm doing. And I do
Yes.
not
To stay in the present moment.
stay present is
Yeah.
essentially what it is, and to not allow people to get in too much. Like, don't pay where you pay your attention, that's where you start to become vulnerable. If you're a sensitive person or an empath or whatever, you start watching everyone around and thinking, how do they feel, or what, how do they respond to me? That it's all going to go out the door. All your energy is just, that's what you're giving it. But if you don't give it, stay present and mind your own energy, mind your own business. That's what I say to myself.
Nice.
Mind your energy, mind my own business. Their energy is not my business. Then
Nice.
I go get my stuff done, and then I come back and I make sure that I'm alone and have enough alone time so I can just relax and not be putting all that effort in.
Yeah, and I think that's an important one. It's not, and people have to really practice this to understand how much they are actually thinking about how the other people are feeling, or yeah, so just really practice to stay with yourself and your energy, and then the other person is also feeling better. Because sometimes I feel it with my 20-year-old son. he's kind
Yeah.
of he's kind of really a pain at the moment.
Okay.
Like he's like not getting his ass off, and starting a bit to do something, well, the normal stuff you have with
Okay.
adolescents.
Uh-huh.
I really, in the conflicts, I then understood that it's actually, even though I don't do a lot, it's just that because he has a very strong ADHD. So I
Okay.
check in with him every now and then. Did you pay your bills and stuff like that? And he gets so annoyed by that, which is just over proportional to what I'm really inquiring. But
Right.
I think he feels that I am with him in energy all the time, and I really, really have to let him go. And
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
very interesting because you cannot fool energy. You can say, I just ask you once a month, but he feels like I'm always
Right.
thinking about how he's doing, how he will he do it now? Let's see if he really managed to do this appointment. And so
Uh,
I have to stop and let him go his way energetically. He feels it. So it's very, very interesting, and people should start to practice that and feel when
Absolutely.
they actually fool themselves and the others. So
One of the things I've learned is the strength of the connections that we have when we establish a relationship. It
mhm.
doesn't matter if the person is on the other side of the world or in the room, it's basically the same energetically when you have established the connection. And your thoughts or feelings towards someone, um, you know, it is like they are there. Like the energy is powerful, thoughts are powerful, and people will sense it. And
Mm-hmm.
I really try to take care with that as well. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this when you're feeling positive and love. And the times when I've gone outside and I just say really nice things in my mind to everyone. Random people are saying, "Hi, good morning." And it's like,
Yes. Yes.
do you have an extra coffee on us or whatever?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing how different that experience is to walking out the door with all your stuff going on and negativity, and suddenly everything just goes wrong. The cashier's mean to you and you trip over, and
Mhm.
yeah, so that's why if I do get overwhelmed or I'm feeling off that day, I really try to limit my
Nah.
contact with other people.
Yes. Nice. And but there's also a teaching in there which is important to me to tune it a little bit, because I think a lot of people, when they think about, oh, so my life is miserable because I don't have the right thoughts, I just have to, it's that victim blaming where you start to victim blame yourself, that you're just doing it wrong, and then we have a cycle again of telling yourself stories where you do everything wrong. And we are in that since thousands of years, and it has a lot to do with religion. So we don't have to be blamed that we are still in that circle of thinking that when we do the right stuff and think the right stuff, then we will be blessed by God or whatever. So but this is actually a very um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's actually it's a dangerous teaching. And of course it, again, like every teaching which can go astray, it has some truth. That's not the point, but you have to be careful, because as soon as you start that you try to maneuver yourself again and restrict yourself so that you're going to be happy, then something is off with the teaching. For me, it's more like what you said very nicely before. It's like to stay with yourself, and I think that's the most important teaching, which you have to peel the onions away, what this really means, and it means to really be yourself,
Yes. Yeah.
even with the shadow side. So it's okay to think, God, you're a fucking asshole, because I'm fucking upset that,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
important. And they love when you are, out of my experience, I made big jumps and leaps when I was really authentic. And I was like, this is fuck. This is shit. And I don't understand this shit show. Why do people have to be so miserable so that we grow? What a fucking
Oh,
shit is
yeah.
that?
I've
And
had tantrums to God. It's like,
right. But it's funny because as soon as you say that, the teaching is coming, and then you start to laugh again, because it's like, when I said stuff like that, like,
yeah.
fuck, why do I have to always be miserable? Why do I have? It's like, no, you don't. You don't have to. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
I don't have to. So it's
Yeah.
very funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can express yourself. And I think part of doing shadow work actually allows you to get out of all of those ideas of what you can't do because you might be a bad
Ish.
person. You
Yeah.
can be assertive and it can hurt somebody's feelings, and you don't have to freak out about it. If like me, I was always so worried about offending somebody. Well, that's not my business either. I'm not going to go out and be rude. I'm not going to go out and harm people, but I am going to stand my own ground. And you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, if I need to confront a situation that somebody else isn't going to like, I can do it without freaking out.
Mhm.
because you know, for a long time I would freak out about somebody getting angry at me. Now that is none of my business. I can, um, if something is reasonable and it has to be dealt with, just deal with it and let them do their side. And I think
Mhm.
those are the kinds of things that I see as useful shadow work. Um,
Yes. Yeah,
being not nice, or whatever it is for you, you know, the thing you can't think, you think you can't be because people wouldn't approve or wouldn't be acceptable.
exactly. But there a lot of people also have a lot of blind spots, I think, because at least for me it was like that. I often thought, nah, I don't have a lot of shadows, until I understood that my biggest shadows are actually that I never want to be shadow. I always want to be the nice person. So this is a big shadow.
Yes,
I didn't
yeah,
understand it, you know?
yeah. Of
So
course, it's a process. It's not something easy.
yeah,
It's not something quick either. It's
yeah,
um,
it can be something very small, like to just deny an aspect of you, which is there lingering all the time, and it's okay.
yeah, that's right, exactly.
Yeah. Very interesting. So what kind of healing techniques did you do? Did you go to therapies or yeah.
Well, after I did the 10-day meditation retreat, and then that began sort of several years of trying many different kinds of healings, from energy healing to plant medicines
Mm. Which
to,
ones?
well, I had several journeys with ayahuasca, um, peyote ceremonies. I also did frog medicine, the
Mm-hmm.
Bufel Iris, it's called, which is extremely powerful. Um, like, yeah, something completely different. I worked with a shaman for around a year, doing different kinds of shamanic work, from soul retrieval to, you know, medicine wheel stuff to shadow work.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, and other things here and there. I did many sweat lodges, temescals, and I was lucky to live for a long period of time where people are practicing in pretty traditional ways. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
ceremony, singing, music,
Yeah.
um, fire, and sort of learnt from that how they connect with the land, the sun, the elements, and their hearts. And I will say that even just by virtue of being in the culture here, Mexican culture is very different to how I grew up. And the heart is where you live from in this culture. And
Mm.
you know, it's a joke that Westerners live up here, and you know, South Americans, Central Americans live here down. So
Yeah.
I got to learn, what does that mean? Oh, wow. Like, what, you know, how do people show love here? And uh,
Mm-hmm.
have real gratitude for, and that's a word that gets thrown around a lot in spiritual circles, that I don't necessarily see playing out truthfully, but I tried to learn as many lessons as I could in what that really means. Like, what are we being given every minute of every day, and even by life, by God, or whatever you want to see or call it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we have, we are being given, and so it was very humbling.
Mm-hmm.
come to this way of thinking, and also see many people around me actually, um, living from their heart with very little material possessions, working very hard. And one thing I often wondered is, these people many times seem to be already enlightened, because they're not in their heads, they're not thinking all the time. And
Yeah.
it's not everybody, but I have met people who I just look at them and it's like they got it already. They
Mhm.
work,
Mhm.
they don't think too much, they can freely give of themselves and of what they have.
Yeah.
So that's a lesson, right, you can get right by just walking out your front door.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we Westerners, we think, oh, they just sit in their hammock and are lazy, but a lot of them just figured out what life is really about. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I first learned this. I traveled to India like more than 15 years ago, and it struck me when I was there that um, there were such hardworking people living often in poverty, but still happy and smiling and willing to give me, somebody who has so much more, what they had.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
my little
Absolutely.
kitty conversation.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. So nice. Yeah. So is there anything you really would like to add? Like what, of course, what I'm always also interested is what what are your thoughts about why people are getting thrown in such a process, and what it also means that actually a lot of people are starting to have these experiences now. So where are we heading? Do you have any thoughts about that?
um, I mean, I certainly people are so interested, more and more people, and whether that's because the information is more available on the internet, is one thought. The other is that there's obviously a lot of change happening in the world right now, and maybe people are becoming so disillusioned that they are looking more and more toward greater meaning. But whether it's ever been any different, well, I don't know. I mean, certainly there have been civilizations throughout time that had a much greater relationship, I think, or connection to God and spirituality outside of um, organized religions that we isn't so available, at least here in the West now.
Yeah.
And so maybe we've just become so deprived that people are desperate and saying, I know there's more, I want more, and I can get access to more because the information is there and people are sharing and there are tools. I mean, yoga is everywhere now,
Mhm.
meditation is quite common, whereas even a few decades ago it was something you only did if you're a weirdo, probably. So
Yeah. Yes. uh,
and I will say that something that struck me, I went to this sort of ecstatic dance a couple of weeks ago
yeah.
down where I lived, and there were mostly people younger than me there. And they were so involved, so working so hard on themselves and on having a deeper connection. And they were so much more aware than I was at their age. And just that really struck me, that desire is there in younger generations. So
uh,
they
yes.
are leading, I don't know, they're leading the way, right? So
Yeah, exactly. I think also it's fascinating, and it's a strange mix at the moment, and that's why I feel a lot with the young people right now, because they have such a spectrum. It's crazy how they function in that spectrum, because on one hand, they have all these very narcissistic TikTok stuff, Instagram stuff going on. So everybody wants to be, like famous. But on the other hand, they really start to understand that I don't want to do this anymore like my parents. I don't want to work my ass off, and I don't want to be told that that's just how it is. So they
Yeah.
start to awaken to that, but on the other hand, they have this other strange dissonant stuff going on. So there's also a very strange mix at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
But
There's
actually, it's for me, when people say, oh, the teenagers today, they are so narcissistic and they don't want to work anymore, I tell people, yeah, but if we look at the positive side, I really, first of all, they will have experiences which we had to do in a very long time, in a short time. Like, they will learn through Facebook and Instagram that all these likes, they don't make you happy, and they will learn it in a short time. And of course, some people, we lose to depression because of that, but the collective will learn in a very short time that this dopamine rush is not what it's all about. And
yeah.
so I want to look at it, at all this social media stuff like this. It's actually positive, because it's a fast forward of learning that this is not what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And yeah, and on the other side, they really feel like, no, I'm not going to work like my parents anymore. I just want to enjoy life. And what is bad about that? It's not. The only thing is that they are in this very strange spectrum of that, then they turn to trying to be famous so they don't have to work and stuff. But it's a threshold, but if it goes well, I think it will bring us forward many years in a
I mean,
fast time.
at the core of that is a greater sort of desire for self actualization and a greater sense
Exactly.
of self. And so, yeah, that can go off the rails in the wrong direction, but um, ultimately, this is a good thing for humanity, for people to be more connected to themselves, to want to, understand the truth, to have autonomy, not to live their lives sort of churning away for some other cause in a corporation, and
Yeah, in a
following
system. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
desire for what actually life is, why we are here having these lives, and that's to be awakened.
Yes. And of course they are lost, but it's because our generation is still lost. So we don't have to blame them. I mean, we didn't teach them that it doesn't mean you have to be pretty or famous, that you self-actualize. We didn't teach them yet. So they are a bit lost and try to find out, but it's a trial and error of
Yeah,
maybe 30 years, and then let's see. But I think it has a lot of potential, but it of course, there a lot of people have to first go astray and find out the hard way. So yeah,
yeah.
so we slowly have to close our
All right.
conversation. It's crazy. The time is running every time. I love these talks so much. So I just want to say thank you so much to you. And let's see, maybe we can have also a another session, you know, you can contact me anytime when you feel like, you know what, I would love to share these or that
Okay.
experience or insight. That would
Yeah,
be very nice.
thank you
But
so much. Yeah.
yeah, for the time being, thank you so much for your time. It was amazing.
Okay, Catherine. All the best, and yeah, we're in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.